Now time for the last passage of test number 3, numbers 34 to 44. More than one way to dress a cat. From Michelangelo's David to Vincent van Gogh's series of self-portraits to Grant Wood's iconic image of a farming couple in American Gothic, period, these works by human artists have favored representations of members of their own species to those of other species. So we've got a fragment. This opening portion is an opening kind of modifying phrase, but it's not modifying any particular sentence. It's trying to be its own sentence, but it cannot. So simply having a period there is no good. Using a semicolon is no good. Using another period is no good. The only one that works is connecting this opening phrase to the main sentence that it's attached to. So instead of saying these works, we just say works by human artists because we've already determined which works in particular we're talking about. So D is going to be our best option. 35. These works by human artists have favored representations of members of their own species to those of other species. Indeed, when we think about animals depicted in well-known works of art, the image of dogs playing poker, popularized in a series of paintings by American artist C.M. Coolidge, may be the first and only one that comes to mind. Well, notice we have a dash earlier in the sentence, and then we finish it off with a comma, right? We have this phrase that we're putting in the middle of our sentence, a participial phrase, but we used a dash here and we use a comma here. So what do we need to do? We need to make our punctuation consistent, which means we've got to use a dash at the end. So that means we're going to go with choice B. Yet some of the earliest known works of art, including paintings and drawings tens of thousands of years old, found on cave walls in Spain and France, comma, portrays animals. Okay, so portrays is a verb. We look at the choices and we see that, okay, we've got portraying, portray has portrayed. Perhaps this is some sort of subject-verb agreement or tense error. Notice this whole bit here is just a non-essential phrase, which we can kind of leave out. So temporarily remove that from the sentence. And what do we have? Yet some of the earliest known works of art portrays animals. What's the subject here? The subject here is works of art, which is plural. Portrays is actually singular, so we do have a subject-verb agreement, and we're going to go with the plural portray. Portraying is not a verb. Has portrayed is also singular. A, we established is singular. The only one that's plural is C. 37. Nor has artistic homage to our fellow creatures entirely died out in the millennia since, despite the many years that have passed between then and now. So the writer wants to link the first paragraph with the ideas that follow, which choice best accomplishes this goal. So let's hold off on this one because we need to see where the passage is going. So we'll come back to 37. Let's do 38. The State Hermitage Museum in St. Petersburg, one of Russia's great art museums, has long had a productive partnership with a much-loved animal, the cat. For centuries, cats have guarded this famous museum, ridding it of mice, rats, and other rodents that could damage the art, not to mention scared off visitors. So what's going on here? What is the scared referring to? It's referring not to the cats. The cats aren't scaring off the prisoners. It is referring to the rodents, right? And other rodents that could damage the art, not mention scare off visitors, because this is going back to basically parallel with damage. Other rodents that could damage the art, not to mention scare off visitors. We need to link this with the first part, which is damage the art and scare off visitors, not damage and scared. Those are two different forms. So we like C. Scaring is not, again, not a verb. Have scared doesn't fix the problem. And A, as we said, doesn't work. So this answer is C. 39. Peter the Great introduced the first cat to the Hermitage in the early 18th century. Later, Catherine the Great declared the cats to be the official guardians of the galleries. Continuing the tradition, Peter's daughter, Elizaveta, introduced the best and strongest cats in Russia to the Hermitage. Today, the museum holds a yearly festival honoring these faithful workers. So where do you want to put sentence 5? Notice this is about continuing a tradition. What tradition is she continuing? Well, it's Peter's daughter, right? Peter the Great. And Peter the Great introduced the first cat, so she's continuing the tradition of introducing the cats. So, and because she's Peter's daughter, it would make sense chronologically and logically to put this after sentence 3. And indeed, that's where we're going to put it. If you look at, let's say, A, where it is now doesn't really make sense. Putting it after sentence 1 is way too early. After sentence 6 is way too late. Best place to put it is right after the sentence about Peter the Great, which is choice C. Number 40. These cats are so cherished by the museum that officials recently decreed original paintings to be made of 6 of them. So, decreed, this is a word choice diction question. Decreed isn't quite the right word when you're trying to get somebody to make art for you. To decree is to give an order or an announcement like a king or something. But here, when you are asking for paintings to be made, what you're doing is commissioning the work. So they recently commissioned original paintings to be made. So this is a word choice diction / vocabulary type question. Forced doesn't make any sense. A licensed doesn't make any sense. Decreed is close, but really B is better because museum officials don't really decree anything, at least unless they're like representatives of a king, I guess, but they're going to commission original paintings to be made. So that's why this one is B. 41. In each, a cat is depicted upright in a human-like pose and clothed in imperial-era Russian attire. The person chosen for this task, digital artist Eldar Zakharov, painted the cats in the style traditionally used by portrait artists. So let's stop. We've got a comma question here. Where should the commas go? Notice the person chosen for this task, we're in a 2 or none type situation. So where, if anywhere, do we want to put the commas? Notice all of our choices use commas, so we're not going to be in a none situation. We're definitely going to use at least 2. The person chosen for this task, digital artist Eldar Zakharov. Probably what we want to do is put the commas around the phrase digital artist Eldar Zakharov to be a positive for the person chosen for this task. Digital artist Eldar Zakharov painted the cats. So we're probably going to want a comma after task and after Zakharov. We do not need a third comma here in between the artist and the Zakharov. We're not going to want this one. So it looks like D is going to be our best answer here because it matches exactly what we want. So this one is D. 42. In so doing, presenting the cats as noble individuals worthy of respect. Which choice most effectively sets up the examples that follow? So let's read the examples that follow. One portrait, the Hermitage Court Chamber Herald cat, includes an aristocratic tilt of feline ears, as well as a stately sweep of tail emerging from the stiff scarlet and gold of royal court dress. The wise, thoughtful green eyes of the subject of the Hermitage Court outrunner cat mimic those of a trusted royal advisor. Some may find it peculiar to observe cats portrayed in formal court poses, but these felines, by mastering the art of killing mice and rats, are benefactors in the museum as important as any human. So what sets up the examples? Notice, in the original, it's presenting these cats as noble individuals worthy of respect. I mean, that's pretty much what's going on here, right? In these 2 examples, right, a trusted royal advisor, wise, thoughtful eyes, having an aristocratic tilt, from their stiff scarlet and gold of royal court dress. So these cats are being depicted as these noble creatures. So the original here actually looks good. Managing to capture unique characteristics of each cat. I mean, I guess on one level they do, but that's not really specific enough. This is too general. Commenting on the absurdity of dressing up cats in royal robes. No, this is not absurd. This is pretty serious business when it comes to drawing pictures of cats or painting pictures of cats as people. So I guess as serious as you can be. Choice D, indicating that the cats were very talented mouse catchers. That comes later, kind of, but that's not what's going on in these examples. So the best answer is the original, choice A. 43, we're going to add this sentence here. Let's see. The museum occupies 6 historic buildings, including the Winter Palace, a former residence of Russian emperors. There is no point at all to add this sentence about where the museum is. We're talking about these pictures of cats and why they're so great. Why would we want to suddenly switch to a discussion of the museum? So A doesn't say anything. This sentence doesn't say anything about the link between Peter the Great and the cat paintings at all, at least in an obvious way to me. B doesn't say really anything about why Russian art celebrates animals. That doesn't make sense. C, because it fails to indicate why the Winter Palace became an art museum. That's not really the major issue. The major issue is that it's just off topic. No, because it provides background information that is irrelevant exactly to the paragraph. So irrelevant, aka off topic. So this one is D. Last one here is 44, for at least towards the end of the passage. Some may find it peculiar to observe cats portrayed in formal court poses, but these felines, by mastering the art of killing mice and rats, are benefactors in the museum, as important as any human. The original doesn't seem terrible, I guess, but let's go to the choices, see what else we got. But these cat felines, by acting as the lead predator in the museum's ecosystem, are benefactors of the museum, as important as any human. I guess that's okay. But I don't know. Let's hold this aside. Let's look at all the choices and see if any jump out at us. But these felines, by hunting down and killing all the mice and rats one by one, that seems a little bit extreme and way too specific. So maybe we would prefer A over C, but still not super obvious. Maybe squiggly that. Let's check out D. But these felines, by protecting the museum's priceless artworks from destructive rodents, are benefactors of the museum, as important as any human. Aha. This nicely connects to the last portion of the sentence, which says that they're benefactors of the museum. How are they benefactors of the museum? Because they protect the museum's priceless artworks. A, B, and C do mention, okay, they kill mice and rats, which I guess is a good thing. But in D, we learn specifically why that's good for the museum, or we reinforce that. So A, B, and C are more or less equivalent. The best one here really is D, because we get that extra info. Let's go back up now to 37. The writer wants to link the first paragraph with what follows. So let's see. Nor has artistic homage to our fellow creatures entirely died out in the millennia since, despite the many years that have passed between then and now. That does not set up anything that's so general and broad. Doesn't talk about, probably cats is what we're going to be looking for, with special attention being paid to domestic animals such as cats. That's pretty good. Let's see. Even though most paintings in museums are of people, not animals, that's not about cats, as the example of one museum in Russia shows. So notice this connects to what follows in the sense that we're going to be talking specifically about this museum, which is really the main focus of this paragraph, of this passage, at least at first, because the cats end up being important to the museum, and that's why we end up making pictures of these cats. But really the focus is at first on this museum. So let's see. I think the problem with B is it's just a little bit too general, with special attention being paid to domestic animals such as cats. No, the focus is on cats, period. But more importantly, we learn this from this discussion of this museum. So the better transition sentence, the better linking sentence, is the one that pushes us into the discussion of the museum, which will then lead us into the discussion of the cats. So of the four choices here, D is the best one.